Live. We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first, my goodness, I'm excited, episode of Hitting the Keynote. And we have Ian Moyse to start off the inaugural episode. I'm so grateful to you, Ian. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Eddie Doyle, and this podcast is a series to solve a problem. Today, we live in a much more complicated world. It's a technological world. Even opening up a bank account, you've got to be able to surf the web very efficiently. You've got to be able to understand password protocols. I always think of my 80-year-old mother when I think about how we present all these kinds of challenges to the citizenry. And so I'm in technology, Ian's in technology, that's even more complicated. And so I started thinking, how do we solve this problem of teaching or demonstrating or instructing other people when we have very technical subject matter to give them? Now, I'll give you a great example because I'm in the cybersecurity space. CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, will often roll out awareness programs for things like online safety to their employees. They'll spend lots of money, very fancy slides, some videos, all sorts of coursework and material. The very next day, the users are passing around an unknown link of a video of a fat cat tripping over a lazy mouse. And you're like, why? Well, because I think it is incumbent upon us, the technologists, to be able to communicate efficiently. So I've got Ian as my first guest. I'm very excited to have you here, Ian. And we're just going to start bantering. Ian's out of the UK. Whereabouts in the UK are you, Ian? Let's start with that.
I'm in Wokingham, which is about 30 miles west of, 25 miles maybe west of London, before someone does the map and tells me I'm wrong. But yeah, just not that far out of London, but it doesn't make any difference today, right? Well, we've all been living this remote world, so I can't remember what London looks like, to be honest, apart from on TV.
That's right. If you're watching this on an archive in the distant future, we are April 2021 and hopefully coming out of this pandemic at some point soon. I got my vaccine recently, so I feel like I've got the superpowers. And there's another very complicated thing. And look at the misinformation on vaccines, right, around the world. So we might hit on that. But I think your strengths, Ian, you run and teach and train sales teams around the globe for technology matters. Is that right?
Yeah, I run a sales team myself. I'm sales leader, but I through luck and chance, I've ended up keynote speaking, being involved in lots of associations and leadership forums and running panels and workshops. And for me, contributing to those and things like this, Eddie, is an experience that you learn from. So every conversation you have, if I'm on a panel, I see that as giving something back, but I'm learning and I'm meeting new people and getting conversation and getting insight from them. I'm learning as well as contributing. Right. So, and the more you put yourself out there and do that, the more you learn and the better you get. So,
well, let's start with that then. So you sit on panels and keynotes. So at some point in your career, somebody said, hey, let's push Ian out there, right? Let's put him on stage. Let's get him communicating. So there's a skill set that took place. Now, let's start with the very basics. What is that skill set about? What are some of the fundamental things that people listening to this can say, I can try this at home today and it will make me a better communicator?
So for me, and I always talk basics, and I think there's some things you've said already I'll comment on. So for me, it's putting yourself in the shoes of the audience. I've sat in the audience so many times with a speaker, with a great title, you think, oh, this is going to be interesting, and I'm going to learn something, I'm going to get insight. Why do you sit in the audience of something? Why do you listen to something? Whether it be a panel, a webinar? It's because you feel you're going to get some value out of it. You're going to get some insight. You're going to learn something of value to you. And how many times are those listening where you've sat there, and I've sat there watching a presentation at some event, and you've sat down, it sounds great, and oh, this sounds interesting. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to give them my time. And a few minutes in, you realize, actually, this isn't addressing what I thought it was, and it's turned into a product pitch. 30 minutes and 5 minutes in, it's only appropriate if I buy this person's product, what they're talking about. Well, hang on a sec. It's the same as when you open a blog or a post and you start to read it. It's not giving you what it said on the tin, right? It's not giving you the value that it alluded to. It's that click. And that's, for me, is if I was in the audience, what do I want to get? If the audience is salespeople, what type of thing is going to give them value? I want them going away from anything where I'm contributing, going, that was a value. And yes, if my agenda is I'm representing where I am one up or whoever, and you've got an agenda, but you don't need to pitch it, right? If they learn from you, what I'll often do is if it's a 30-minute slot I've been given, is I'm going to give them value. I'm going to hook them in and give them as much value as I can in that time. But if I must get them to come back to me and know what I do, at the end, I might go, hopefully, and there's 25 minutes, I've got 5 minutes left, and there's 25 minutes. How many of you think you've got some value? There's something you've heard that you can use, and great, fantastic. I'm glad. Hopefully, therefore, you don't mind me in return asking us some value from you. Let me tell you what we do for 2 minutes. And if it's of interest, I'm going to be over there. You can come and talk to me, right?
So that's interesting. That's I think there's a psychological principle in there. What you're basically saying is, I'm going to give you something, let's say, not quite for free, but really for free. And then you're going to say afterwards, if you found value in that, would you like to reciprocate? In other words, would you then listen to something that is going to give me value, which is you listening to my pitch?
Give before you take, right? If I start taking too early in that piece, I haven't built the rapport with you. I haven't earned the right for me to tell you about us. What happens here is you turn off. I've watched people in audiences. How many times have you seen this? A group of people in a session, they've sat down, they've come into it, chosen the session.
Right.
And 5 minutes in, how many people start getting up and walking out?
Right.
And then others do it, because as soon as you start to see someone do it, you think, well, if they can do it, I'm excused. Well, why is that? Well, occasionally you'll get someone attended the wrong one. Great. But if you see multiple people leaving, they're not getting the value.
Right.
So they leave, right?
And so let's set the stage a little bit for the audience, because you spoke about people coming into a session. So I think what you're referring to here is that people will attend a conference. Let's say it's a conference in food, right? Just to pick on something very simple and not very technical. So it's a food conference for health food, right? And it's, here's the paleo kind of room. And this is the way they set it up with these big conferences for the people that haven't been to them. Here's the paleo diet room. Here's the vegan diet room. Here's the vegetarian diet room, right? Here's the carnivore diet room. That's the one I would go in. And when the people select those rooms, surely they want to hear about, let's say, the carnivore diet. So what's the difference between pitching to them in that room and giving them valuable information?
So, because I think what tends to happen is when people start pitching is it's your agenda, not the audience's, right? I'm now trying to sell you something, and that's not what they came in for. If you blatantly did that, right? If you're at an exhibition where you're demonstrating a product, the Jinsu knife or whatever it is, people stop. They know why they're stopping, right? Right. They're buying into exactly what they know, what they're getting, and they're signing up for is a demonstration of a product you're going to try and sell. They know. Too often, I think things are positioned as I'm going to give you value, and you start taking before you give. You start selling, and it turns in. It's basically a sales pitch. Well, that's not what it was advertised. You didn't say, "Come in here, and we're going to tell you about our product," or whatever that may be. You say, come in here and learn about X, Y, and Z. Let's say it's security, right? Come in here and learn how you can be better secure. And what you don't want is 2 minutes in, you're talking about checkpoint features and products and functions. But that's not what you told me I was coming into. That I only get the value now from this session if I'm buying checkpoint product.
Yeah.
So I always look for what is the audience's agenda where I can give you value. And I've had many people when I've spoken say that we didn't expect that. Well, in what way? Well, you didn't talk all about what you do. But did you not like that? No, it's fantastic. But we expected you to start pitching, because that's what everyone does. Everyone wants. So I think of the audience first, and what value can I give to the specific audience and what they're expecting. And I want the audience afterwards saying, if they were grading the session, if they were asked what was the value, is that 9 out of 10? I want them giving high ratings. If I've earned that, do you know what? If I walk up to them afterwards and say, can I have a conversation? They can have a conversation with me. I've earned the right. I've earned the rapport. I've given. Now I've earned the right to have the conversation, as opposed to I'm demanding you to listen to me and on my agenda. It's the wrong way around, and too many people fall into that. It's not clever. It's not rocket science. It's pretty simple to do. And
Right.
it's human behavior, right? It's give them value and insight, educate them, give them something in the way they want to digest it. And then what you can get is you can earn the right to your agenda, but your agenda should be a lot smaller than theirs until they choose to engage you. If they say to me, Ian, tell me all about what you do,
Right.
they've
Right.
just, I'm happy to do it, but they've asked me to.
And I want to get to a comment here. I haven't seen Jean-Mathieu for absolutely ages. It's so cool. He was a fellow New Yorker there for a while. I'm on the other side of the pond, despite my deft Bronx accent. Jean-Mathieu went back to Paris. You're the man too, buddy. Good to see you. And then, yeah, his comment is care. That's absolutely true. It's an interesting psychology, though, isn't it, Ian? Because people want to be sold to, but they don't want to feel like they're being sold to. It's like, Eddie, convince me that the carnivore diet is the best diet. Convince me that this product is the best product, right? Because I'm trying to figure out what the best products are in the marketplace. So they want somebody to tell them and pitch to them, but they don't want to feel like they're being sold to. Do you see what I mean? There's kind of there's an interesting kind of, I think, oh, Jean-Mathieu, you're so sweet, man. Thank you very much. I miss you too, buddy. Totally miss you too. I've got to come to Paris. It's been a crazy 14 months, hasn't it? And well, back to Jean-Mathieu's comment there, I think that's maybe the difference. So thank you for that, Jean-Mathieu, is caring, right? I think if people go into a room which is, I want to learn about this thing, if they don't think you care about them, I imagine there's all sorts of walls that they put up. And in actual fact, there's an interesting biochemical reaction here. Simon Sinek, who wrote that book, Start With Why, Leaders Eat Last, I think is another one of his books. He talks a lot about this. He says that you get dopamine, oxytocin, there are four of them, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and I forget the other one. There's four. And when you start tapping into oxytocin, which is the love chemical, let's say, right? You get oxytocin from hugging people. You get oxytocin about feeling good. So when we're talking with people, and I don't think this can be faked. I mean, maybe there's a great salesperson out there. Maybe there are con artists out there that can make people do this. For the most part, I think, and why not, just be genuine, actually care about the crowd. It's kind of what you were saying, actually. And if you think about it that way, you said at the very beginning of this dialogue, I imagine myself sitting in the audience. And what was it like for me? That's actually empathy, right? That is the trait of empathy, is imagining what life is like in somebody else's shoes. And as soon as you do that, they can feel the caring from you. And, then I think you have certainly a higher probability of success in communicating what it is you're trying to communicate to people, because they'll then listen to you. So I want to, yeah, go on.
The other thing, Eddie, I noted when you were talking earlier is there's two other things came to mind. One is the old principle of KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
And you said what we're guilty of in our sector is certainly is acronyms.
Yes.
Right. And we overcomplicate stuff because it makes, who does that make sound clever? It's the person saying it. So if I start talking acronyms, I know what they are, it's hip. But if the audience doesn't understand what those are, it hasn't got any context, it gets more and more complex for them to. What you just talked about, security is particularly prone to it, right? There's so many, a DDoS attack. What the hell does that mean to an average user, and why do they need to even know it's called that?
Right.
Is we need to simplify stuff so that it's not dumbing it down in any way. But if you're an expert in a particular field, you understand acronyms, but look at the whole thing going on with COVID. I'm sure there's lots of acronyms they could be spinning around and the scientists are talking about, but don't start spinning them to all of us, because you just get what? You just turn off. It's too much to digest when I can't read science fiction books when they're all really weird words, made up words, and it's so difficult. My brain just, it feels like an effort, not a pleasure to read.
Right. Yeah.
Talk
and
to
we're
your
totally guilty of that in the tech world. Look, we need acronyms, absolutely. And I want to get to Miguel, stand by, buddy. I'm going to get to your comment in just a moment. But this thought on acronyms is kind of interesting, because we kind of need them when we're talking, because we need to shortcut long sentences, right? And there's so many things out there. So we get used to that. So I think we potentially trip up when we communicate with people outside of our industry with using acronyms. There is a little bit of guilt, though. I'm going to be slightly harder on our various industry peers, where I think people want to show off their intellectual prowess.
Yeah.
Right? They just want, look at me. And part of that is because it's a highly competitive world out there. So it's like, we're trying to compete always at all the time. So yes, we want to show off that prowess in that regard. But when we're speaking to the layperson, I think it really hurts us. Now, Miguel, perfect. He's an engineer in cybersecurity. So you talk about having that intellectual strength and having very, very complicated subject matter and complicated thoughts. I mean, cybersecurity engineers, I like to joke, Miguel, think in ones and zeros. Miguel will remember my IP address before I remember my name, right? Right? So this is what I always joke about engineers. And Miguel says the difference is when you make it about them, the people, instead of you. So perfect, Miguel.
Exactly what I said at the beginning, Miguel, is put yourself in their shoes and behave as such. It's simple as that.
Yeah, and I think we technologists too, I'll be a little hard on us again. We do tend to fall into the trap of being a little, let's say, cold, ones and zeros, right? Because technology, we know when we are programming, when we're fighting with technology, it's all ones and zeros, if then commands, right? Artificial intelligence really isn't artificial intelligence. It's just machine learning. So there's a little secret for the layperson that might be listening to this one day. There still is no AI, because AI is self-aware, right? That is something that is able to program itself and have its own consciousness. I say, thankfully, we still don't have AI. So whenever you hear people like us talking about AI, it's really ML, which is machine learning. And here I go with the acronyms, right? So it's if-then commands. Now, the problem when we work in the technological world for a long time with if-then kind of commands, is the human heart is not an if-then, not at all, right? And the other thing, and I remember reading the back of one of Bill Gates's books years ago. This was a long time ago. He published a book. I think he was still the CEO or certainly the chairman over at Microsoft before he was doing all these amazing charitable endeavors. He wrote it was a book toward teenagers. It was geared toward teenagers. And I was in a bookstore with one of my daughters, and I was looking at the back of this thing, and it had the top 10. These are the top 10 things you should do to be successful in life, one of those. And then it had a number 11 for kind of a joke in italics. And it said, be nice to geeks, you'll eventually work for one. And I thought, that's really interesting, because up until fairly recently in human history, really the Renaissance and really with the internet and technology since Alan Turing invented the computer, the brutes and mystics ruled the world, right? It was kings and queens and strength, right, ruled the world.
Yeah.
Today, it's absolutely this thing that rules the world.
Data is the new gold, is the phrase, right?
Data is the new gold. I like that.
Information has the most value and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But here's something we can add into that conversation, right? It's something else I've been talking about recently, is the difference between conversation and communication.
Okay, go on then. Tell us.
And talking about complex subjects and complex discussions, too often, and I've spoken about this in a couple of other sessions today, in fact, we mistake communication for conversation. And interestingly, often it's a generation thing where, and on a previous session, one of the gentlemen on there spoke about the age of children. He said his daughters, and quite often they'll say, oh, we chatted yesterday. And then when they're talking, he goes, what do you mean chatted? And they'll say, and what they actually mean is chatted.
Oh,
Keyed, right? They didn't chat, but how do we interpret that? As well, you spoke to them? No. And too often today, I find people say, oh, well, yeah, I had a conversation with Jim yesterday about that. And if you then say, when you say a conversation, oh, we exchanged emails, right? That is not a conversation, and it is prone to misunderstanding. WhatsApp, emails, text messages, all of these different communication forms have their place, absolutely. But they also lead to misunderstanding. Take out autocorrect mistakes that they'll do, but you can still misinterpret. You can read it and think, oh my God, they're angry at me, and they're not. If you spoke to them, they're being humorous, but you've mistaken the interpretation because there was no tonality of voice, there was no visual.
Yeah.
And I think particularly with complex subjects, and when you're engaging with perhaps customers, the other thing I introduce into that is change the channel. If you get a communication saying, I really can't, you don't support people like this. I can't figure out how to do this, and they've described something, and you now do an electronic response, and they're now trying to solve it. Have you truly understood the problem they describe? You think you have, but if you spoke to them and changed the channel, you said, look, I'm not sure I understand. Just to clarify what you're saying, have you got 5 minutes for a call? You jump on a call, you talk them through it, and you go, oh, that's what you're doing. Oh, that's not what I thought. Oh, no. Right, I can help you with that.
Right.
Because you've got conversation. And it's a very subtle thing. But on complex things, it can make a massive difference.
I love it. Yeah, I'm totally taking that one today. That's amazing. I think that's going to serve me moving forward. I'm going to start talking about, let's have a conversation. And when people reply an email, I'll be like, no, you're getting it wrong, right?
But how many people change the channel, right? If and I do it as well, right? We're habitual. If you get a WhatsApp, you reply with a WhatsApp. Very few people then go, oh, I'll call them. Unless they've said, WhatsApp, can you call me? You respond with what time are we meeting today? When are you ever going to phone? Now, maybe it's the right thing to do, but sometimes it's not. And all I say is, think about a communication and just pause and think, is it best to reply in the same format, or just to say, actually, let's speak about this because it's more appropriate to have a conversation. Not every time, but there are times when you should change the channel. Just try and do it when it's the right time to do it.
It's a great slogan. It's a great slogan, Ian. Change the channel, right? I like that, because that's the other thing. I think if people can't knuckle it down in kind of a few words, and Mark Twain has a brilliant quote about this. I'll probably balls it up a little bit, but it's something along the lines of, it takes me all day to come up with, a sentence to describe, 10 seconds, something like that. So if we can't articulate something concisely in a few words, then I suspect people start tuning out for a start. I mean, going back to my food example, food is such a big deal nowadays, right? I live in the United States of America. There's a lot of obesity here. I think there's a lot in Europe too now, right? And it's like, why? Why so much obesity? There's so much information out there. And here's what's super interesting about it. I actually looked at trends in grocery markets, what they've been selling for the past 50 years. And we are selling more fruits and vegetables than we ever have. And yet it's still an issue. So I knuckled it down like this one time, right? I actually got this from, I was staying at a cabin in the middle of nowhere, Western Canada, with this hippie that lived off the land. And I turned up with my wife and 3 kids, and, we were at this cabin, and he came in and was just chatting with us. He's working, and he said, oh, you can help yourself to my garden. I've got, tomatoes and all this, that, and the other. And as he came in, he was a bit critical because I had boxes of cereal there. And he said to me, Eddie, food doesn't grow in a cardboard box. That was over 10 years ago. And I just thought, brilliant. If it's in a cardboard box, it's not food. And you can take that thought and apply it to any meal that you're going to prep. And if it comes out of a cardboard box, it's not food. And I just thought, well, what a simple way to look at being healthy. And so I've tried to take that into the rest of my vocabulary in cybersecurity for my profession, raising my children, whatever it might be, communicating, volunteering in my community, right? If I can knuckle it down to a quick sentence, half a sentence that's powerful, you can own that. And now you own language, and this is why slogans are used so much in marketing and advertising, right?
Yeah, about keeping it, back to keep it simple, right? If you can simplify it, if you can simplify something so people can understand it, then they'll be more interested and engaged. And it's easier for you, right? Too many people overcomplicate things. And I think sometimes it's to make themselves look clever. And like you, there's a famous saying, and I can't remember who said it. It might have been Einstein or someone, but where it's smart. The smarter man is not someone who takes something simple, makes it complicated, but someone who can take something very complicated and explain it simply. Brilliant. Probably badly done, right? But you get the point. It's I've always lived by keep it simple. Why are you overcomplicating stuff? And the other thing is talk about what it does for someone. In the sales world, it's too often features, functions, bullets, whatever. It's what people don't buy a product, they buy an outcome. They buy, what does it do for me? You're not really buying a car, you're buying this is going to enable me to get the kids to school dry on a rainy, snowy day. It's the outcome you're buying. That's why you need a car, right? Not for the sake of having one or whatever it is you're buying. It's think about what's the message, what's the audience taking away, what's the value to the person listening in whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if you nail that, then you've got a big tick from the person listening, and that's the main thing, right? And they'll value you. And I always talk about, if you're writing blogs or social media or content, think about your audience and address them first, not what's in it for you, what's in it for them.
Yeah. Now, how do I overcome this, Ian? Sometimes I still feel, and I've been in a sales role for a good 20 years, but I still feel a bit sheepish about learning techniques like exactly what we're discussing today, because it's almost like it's not authentic. So when I think about, oh yeah, okay, I got to learn about the value. Okay, Eddie mentioned having a slogan, right? That's a good thing too. And and Ian mentioned, okay, keep it simple and bring it down to conversation, not communicate, and change the channel. All right, awesome. And all of a sudden, I'm not Eddie Doyle anymore. I'm something else, and it makes me not feel authentic. Do you know what I mean by that? It's a strange psychology.
Well, it shouldn't change who you are, right? None of that changes who you are, because it's not saying be a different person. You need to be authentic. There's two things I say. One is be authentic. Don't pretend to be someone else. Be authentic. And two is be transparent as you're able.
Yeah.
Right. Because
explain that. What do you mean by transparent?
Well, if you're engaging with someone or selling to someone, or let me give an example. I'm recruiting at the moment. Okay. So I'm not trying to convince people to join us. I'm trying to identify the right match for that individual and us, that it's right for both of us. So when I'm interviewing someone, I say to them, look, I'm going to be transparent about things, and if it puts you off and you now don't want to apply, it's the right thing. Because how many times you interview with a company and they give you the shiny picture, you then join and there's some warts, right? Well, there's warts in every company. There's systems that don't quite integrate, or we're going to fix that, or that's every company. It's not that it's a bad thing, but they don't want to tell you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I tell them I'm transparent, and I say, you know what you're going to get. If you join for the right reason. And some people go, actually, yeah, I didn't realize that. That's probably not for me then. That's not what I thought. That's fine, because you're going to find out when you join and it's not going to be right for you.
Well, do they though?
Some people go the other way. Some people go the other way and go, oh my God, I'm even more excited now. That's fine. Good.
True. Yeah. But do the people who object, if you need a paycheck, do people not try to kind of compromise and give you the answer that they think you want to hear? I mean, it's not a good thing, because they're going to end up in a spot which they're not going to like and you're not going to like, and they'll eventually end anyway. But I wonder how brave people can be in that transparency on the receiving end, especially when you need a paycheck.
Yeah, so I think it will vary in different things, right? One size doesn't fit all. But in general, what I find is people, whilst they may need a paycheck, they don't want to be in a position where I'm working somewhere I don't like, right? It's not just about the money. It's about, I want to join somewhere, earn the money, but also have something that I'm passionate about. And like, I don't, who wants to go to work with somewhere they hate, right? Because sometimes there is necessity. So there are exceptions, absolutely. Sure. But in the roles I'm recruiting, it's not a transient role, right? It's not something where you can just flit in and out of it. It's a career type decision. And what I tend to find is people are pretty transparent about it. I've had a couple of people back out of the process because they've said, okay, but they've said, I really appreciate the fact the way you've handled this. It's professional. And I do it with customers. I'm transparent, right? I say to them, I'm not trying to force a product on you. This is a two-way thing. I want to understand, can we give you the value? Are we the right fit for you, that you'll get the value out of it, that in 6 months, if you spoke to me, you're going to go, I thank you. I want to thank you that we're using your product. Genuinely, I don't want you having a conversation. We said, I wish we hadn't bought this because it's not right. Right. So I'd rather work with you. And I tell them this. I say, look, I want to be transparent with you. Yes, I would love to win you as a customer, but only for the right reasons. Let's together have a conversation to figure out if we're the right square peg for square hole with you. And if we are, then we can move forward and discuss how that'll look and what we need to do. If we're not the right thing for you, then I'm more than happy for us to identify that early, so I don't waste your time and you don't waste mine. Is that fair? Which prospective customer is ever going to say, no, that's not fair? I really want to force you to sell you our product. They want to do the right thing by them and their business as well. So they know they know your job's a salesperson.
Right.
So what's wrong with being transparent and professional about it? You know, you don't. There's some things confidentially you can't be transparent about.
Yeah.
Real world, right? But as far as you are able to be transparent, get permission, and people respect that, and be authentic about it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a time that, gosh, this is reminding me of something that happened probably about 15 years ago. And I was in a training role. Actually, it was kind of a, Eddie, you're doing quite well, so go out and train the rest of the gang. It just tends to happen, I suppose. And so when I was doing that, I remember saying, you got to be authentic. And one of the team members, sitting at the desk, well, how do you be authentic? Well, the only way I can say it is be authentic. Right, so that's kind of a tough one to communicate too, as far as complex subjects matter being communicated, right, in a conversation. How do we communicate to people how to be authentic, right? Because as soon as you start telling somebody, well, do this, this, and this to be authentic, don't you lose the authenticity?
Well, no, I think it's so. Let me give an example, right? Let's give an example. If a customer says to me or says something about, oh, did you watch the football last night? I don't blag it because I'm not into football. I don't blag it and go, oh yeah, I saw the game. I don't try and earn rapport with them using false alignment, right? And that's part of it. Authenticity is saying, I hate to say, I'm not into football, right? That's authentic and honest answer. Too many people try and blag it and find angles. I always say doing social selling, if I want to know about a person that I'm going to engage with, so I'll look them up on LinkedIn. I'll see if they've got a Twitter account. And if their Twitter account is all about, I don't know, things that I'm interested in, if they're massively into the same things as me, there's genuinely, authentically a conversation to have about, oh my God, I was looking you up before we spoke. Are you into magic? Because all over your Twitter account, it looks like you, oh yeah, I do magic at the weekends. Oh my God, you don't, dear. I practice magic. What do you, there's a conversation. But if they say they're into archaeology in the 17th century, which one prospect I had said all about it and all the places they visit,
right?
I didn't try and pretend that I'm into it as well, right? That's not authentic. And to get a conversation, it's well, I can't. That's not authentic. So it's be who you are. If you're genuinely got alignment with another individual that builds rapport, it's fair to use it. That's authentic. It's genuine. Be genuine. Be truthful about stuff.
Truthful. That's right. Exactly. I refer to it sometimes as brutal honesty. And there's a lovely quote by Carl Jung. And he said, I want to nail this one. He said, a genuine moral effort is a great substitute for psychotherapy. That was a brilliant quote, right? A genuine moral effort. So in other words, brutal honesty, which I tell you, I think that's really challenging. And I don't mean that people are just out there lying. I don't mean that at all. What I mean by honesty is knowing yourself, knowing the truth about yourself. What do you really like? Like you, I see my mates, like I'm over here in North America, and I'm just not a sports guy. So the football over here is different from over there, right? So, but I see my mates going to these football games. It looks like they're having a riot. Their faces are painted. I mean, these crowds are ridiculous in the United States. It's ginormous, right? 80,000 people. And these are for college games sometimes. And I'm kind of a wannabe because I see the excitement and I want to be part of that club. So a genuine moral effort, a brutal honesty is to actually say, you know what, guys, because they'll invite me. Yeah, you want to come to Vegas this week and watch the game, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just going to be a spare tool, man. I'm just going to be sitting on one of the stools, not knowing what's going on, asking you why that guy made that run for the rules. I love and appreciate that you guys are doing this stuff, but I'm just not a football guy. I'm just not that guy. I must admit, I still find that a little bit difficult simply because I want to be part of a club or want to be part of a group. I suppose that's natural as well, too, right? We're still very tribal creatures. And so when I find people that are interested in, I've got some philosophy books on my shelf there, interested, I gravitate toward them, right? Gravitate toward, this is why I'm putting this together, is to figure out, how communication is just a really interesting subject to me, right? And it's also because I've met some incredibly smart people. And yeah, let's take the conversation in this direction. I've met some insanely smart people over the course of my career. I'm talking people 140, 150 IQ, right? They've got PhDs in linguistics and mathematics, and yet they can't communicate.
Yeah.
And so they seem to be left by the wayside unless they find that sweet spot in their career that basically just says, put your head in the books, produce a piece of paper, and you'll be amazing. It's like, okay, great. But you think about quantitative analysis type people that work on Wall Street, unless they can speak up and articulate the food doesn't grow in a cardboard box type slogan, right? Let's have conversation and not communication, change the channel, these kinds of things. This is very precise language, Ian. Why is it somebody who's ultra intelligent doesn't seem to have what seems to come naturally, perhaps, for folks like you and I?
Well, for me, it's practice. For me, it hasn't come naturally.
Good. Right, tell us.
If anyone I was talking about this on a previous thing like this, where they were talking about, well, how did you get into doing public speaking and this sort of stuff? And if anyone had said that years ago, they'd have said, there's no way he'll do that, because I was shy, right? And I'm still a shy in person. So if I go into a party environment, I'm not going to walk up, be the one walking up to all the strangers, introducing and doing the speech and ding, ding, ding.
No kidding.
Right? But when it's work environment, it's like a separate persona. I've trained myself, and the way I did it was the first opportunity, and I can't remember exactly, but when I had the opportunity to speak, there's a small group, is I forced myself, and I did it through preparation, overly preparation, because so scared of it. And I've got 2 small kids, and one of them just had to do a thing at school, and they're scared of it, right? Most people get ingrained that they're scared to public speak. And there was I think it was a Woody Allen comment. We keep doing quotes, but it was something like, it was either Woody Allen or Seinfeld. It was one of them. And they talked about the stats about people being scared to speak. More people are scared to public speak, than of dying, which means they'd rather be in the coffin at a funeral than giving the eulogy.
That's right. I think it's Woody Allen or Jerry Seinfeld or something.
Yeah. So when you think about that, it's like, really? So I encourage people to take every opportunity. And my salespeople I work with, I say, if you get no, can you do it? I said, no, do it. What's the worst that's going to happen, right? The worst that's going to happen is you're going to feel a bit embarrassed. You're not going to lose a leg. You're not going to go to hospital.
Right.
And you've just gained an experience that you've public spoken and how to go, right?
Right.
Prepare. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Prepare, do your notes. Now when I present and speak, yes, I'll prepare, but it's more methodic, and I'm still a bit nervous and going on, but I make sure I know the material, the subject beforehand, that I get high gradings from the audience. They go, oh my God, that's fun. You must do this all the time. But I'm still nervous, but I program myself by habit, by doing it more and more times, that muscle memory means I can cope with that and get up and do it and do a good job. It's more the fear of doing it than the actual doing it, right? Because what's the worst that's going to happen? That people aren't going to boo you off. People feel bad if you're not.
That's right. They do.
They feel bad for you in the audience. They're like, oh no.
They do.
So, but every time you do it, you'll get more confident. But more people than not do it the first time, feel uncomfortable. Oh, it didn't go as well as I'd liked. But why would it? You're not a natural public speaker. Oh, I'm not doing it again then. Then you won't get any better.
Right.
When you drove a car, did you get in the first time, have a go, and then the first lesson go, oh, I can't do this, and gave up, and you've never driven since? No, you got better every lesson, and now you can drive a car and you don't even think about it.
Exactly. It comes rote memory. I've got a great tip on that. But first I want to go to this quick comment and say hi to Trina Lowe. Trina, great to see you. It's been a long time. So Trina Lowe is great marketing. I believe you're still marketing champion of Canada, aren't you, Trina? But Trina's in Western Canada. I spent 25 years living in the edge of the Rocky Mountains there. So hello, Trina. Thanks for dialing in. And hey, Trina, reach out to me, because this would probably be a great thing for your organization to get involved with on this podcast, since you are a marketing lady extraordinaire. And I'm going to tease you a little bit here, Trina. Trina's fantastic. All right, so Trina's got, she wears kid shoes And what's awesome about it is she goes like Spider-Man shoes, Batman shoes, all the the advantage of having smaller feet, Trina. So that's really cool. See how I remember stuff? And what was that, 20 years ago? So awesome, Trina. You know, Ian, I've got a great tip for people listening on that, because you're absolutely right. People would rather be in the casket than you giving the eulogy. And it's like, why? Well, I'll tell you why. Right? It's very much part of our evolution. You don't need to think it's about you, right? It's not you, audience member, that is, I'm nervous, I get up in front of a crowd, I get sweaty palms, I start trembling, my heart races. It's like, yeah, that's right. And so it should. Now hear me out. The reason why it should is because 150,000 years ago, when we were standing on the plains of the savannah and you saw a bunch of eyeballs staring at you from the tall grass, you were going to be lunch. So it is a natural biochemical reaction that when you get up onto a stage and there are a bunch of eyeballs looking at you, that your biology goes, oh, hang on, I remember this, right? Because memory gets passed down through the cellular network. I mean, this is an incredible thing, our DNA. We're learning so much about this through CRISPR technology today. So that feeling is absolutely normal. Now, I'm a fairly seasoned keynote speaker, but if I still get up in front of an audience where, you know, I'm in the back and there's the curtain, I'm getting mic'd and there's maybe 6,000, 7,000 people, I still feel it, absolutely. So here's the trick, I chew a piece of gum. And the reason why is because I'm beating that biological response back with biology. If you start chewing gum, enzymes come into your mouth and into your digestive system that says, oh, it's dinner time. And at dinner time, we're not doing fight or flight. At dinner time, we're typically sitting down in a relaxed environment. We're eating. You don't eat while running away from a bear, right? You eat when everything is all chilled and done and it's secure and everything's fine. You're not exercising. Yeah. So what happens is those enzymes that get released into your body basically trigger your brain to say, everything's fine now. So that's just a neat little hack that you can do. And I still sometimes do it. I also take maybe a little mint. Because what a mint will do is it'll do two things. It'll help fight back that biology that like I just mentioned, but it also clears your sinuses up so you can speak more clearly. I mean, these are all little tips, right, that are super helpful from a couple of seasoned warriors on this thing.
Well, hopefully I can try the chewing gum one, because hopefully we'll be in a world where a keynote speech in person exists again.
It will. We're going to bring it back. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, definitely. And, you know, and it's going to be a hybrid world, because I think we'll start to wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so, ladies and gentlemen, but I think it's going to come back as a hybrid world. So here we are, April 2021. In the United States, we've got something like 120 million Americans vaccinated now. So good. I think not too much more, or maybe another double. We've got 370 million people here, and herd immunity starts to get reached, so that's good. But I think we just proved that this internet thing makes the world continue ticking, even if we don't have to drive into work. So I love the fact that, you know, our environment might be a little bit cleaner because we won't be driving in as much. I think that our lifestyle will be upgraded. I've worked from home for about 15 years, so I'm used to my commute down the staircase. The dog gets in the way on occasion, and it's like, this is my traffic jam today. But aside from that, that's my biggest stress getting to work. I am a road warrior, though, so I spend a lot of time on a plane. But I think that our lifestyle will be upgraded, because if you can finish work at 5 o'clock and already be home and then get on that bicycle to work out or go see your family, then amazing. Now, we will have in person, because we're social creatures. We need that oxytocin. I'm seriously hug deprived. I really am. And so, you know, let's get back to that. I think for corporations, when we, like Ian and I, do our various pitches around the world, when our competitors are going in person, we're going to be going in person too. So that'll come back. But this whole video thing is here to stay. There are some amazing tools. I want to cover them. I'm going to have some folks from Prezi on one of my calls coming up. I'm interviewing them in a few weeks on, you know, how we design some of the best presentations. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, I think we might want to part there. Ian, why don't you tell us where people can find you on socials if they want to reach out to you for any further information?
Sure. Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, I'll give 3 quick links. One is for what I do, the one-up piece, which is on my shirt somewhere here, if I get the right side, which is oneupsales.co.uk. Me personally, you can find me at ianmoyse.co.uk and ianmoyse.cloud, which is the 2 main social platforms, Twitter and LinkedIn. Thank you.
Beautiful. Ian, I'm so glad you were my guest today, the inaugural guest for this podcast. We'll see where it goes, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, good luck. And you can definitely reach out to me on the socials. LinkedIn is probably my only one right now, my biggest one. And I'm easy to find. Edwin-Eddie Doyle, Manhattan. I'm the one guy that pops up. So good luck with that. Ian, stand by right there. And audience, thank you.